So first up, happy Earth Day, everybody. Big day in the year. And also, thanks for taking the join us today. My name is Maxwell Payne. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Rise. And honestly, before we get into the speaker introductions, which is going to be great, it wouldn't be right if I didn't tell you a little bit about Rise. But honestly, I will be brief, I promise. So just go to the next slide. So really, if you've never been to buildwithrise.com before, we are without question North America's #1 online destination for sort of homeowner know-how, expertise, and really connections for a more sustainable home. Over the last 3 years or so, we've had close to 5 million unique visitors. Pretty incredible for a website that's dedicated exclusively to sustainability in the housing sector. Yeah, that's really about it. I'm not going to go into each and every one of these slides because we promised we'd be gentle and we would get into introducing the speakers. I will say one thing though, and this is a bit of a nudge, wink, wink. We do have courses available for realtors that will definitely help you continue to be your client's best resource for everything home related. So that's it. Done with the shameless self-promotion. Let's get started. So I'm going to introduce both of our speakers today, and we're honestly honored, we're humbled, and extremely excited to introduce our speakers today, which are both of whom are really some of the most highly sought after and well-respected leaders and experts in their field. At the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&As with Craig and Chris. So there should be plenty of time to get any questions you have answered. So in no particular order, actually, we're going to go alphabetically. We're going to go with Chris Chopik first. And just a little bit about Chris. For 16 years, Chris has worked as an urban realtor. He's helped clients to optimize lifestyle considerations while investing in real estate. He's also a leading expert on the emerging understanding of how climate change and the impact it has on the real estate values in North America is being felt and around the world. Chris is a well-established writer, speaker with really an unmatched expertise on the nexus of sustainability and real estate. And of course, Mr. Craig Foley. Now, Craig is a leading national voice on sustainability in the real estate industry. His combination of real estate and energy management skills give him really a very unique perspective about sustainable energy solutions and gives him massive subject matter expertise on greening the MLS, as well as high performance home evaluation and marketing and the impact of climate change on the real estate industry. He's also the founder of Sustainable Real Estate Consulting Services, which is a lead green associate and the Chief Sustainability Officer for Lair Realty Partners. So good morning, gentlemen. Welcome. As I said before, we're really super excited to have you both here in one forum. And I honestly can't wait for the insights that are going to come from both of your gigantic brains, and really looking forward to it.
Man, you're really overselling it, Max. This is
okay.
I don't think we can live up to that, Craig. Yeah.
All right, I take it all back. So I guess we should get started.
Yeah. So Max and Ashley, thanks so much for Rise hosting this. And Chris, it's always great to chat with you. Chris is like a brother from another planet for me. He's in Canada, and I just love having the chance to chat with him whenever we have the opportunity to do so. But this slide says it all. The demand for homes with green features, high performance features, sustainable features, eco-friendly homes, whatever term that you want to use, is growing. We're seeing this. Certainly, the National Association of Realtors in the United States is spending a lot of time, energy, and effort looking at this topic because we're seeing increased buyer demand for homes that are healthier to live in, offer lower utility costs, incredibly low cost to operate a home, more comfortable homes to live in. And of course, a big driver right now is health and indoor air quality, and what that means to the industry, particularly after having spent the last year walking around in masks all the time. The environmental impact on these homes is huge. We're going to talk about that in a few more slides. And, the critical role of the realtor here, the opportunity that is here before us is just immense, and I think underappreciated. Max, for National Association of Realtors, we have 1.4 million members, and only half of 1% of those members have their green designation, which is a full, solid course on building science, on marketing, on marketing those types of homes, the valuation of those types of homes, and what it means to your business, how to turn that into business. So there's a huge opportunity here for realtors across the United States to specialize this, and we are definitely seeing a growth in this part of the industry that it's happening exponentially, certainly in my marketplace in Massachusetts. I don't know, Chris, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I'm a bit proud of the Toronto Real Estate Board. We were the first green MLS in North America in 2007. I agree wholeheartedly. The role of the realtor is unmatched. I mean, housing is the ticket to upward mobility, status, wealth, and well-being across markets. Housing is central to quality of life, and realtors are the trusted advisors on where to invest, what to invest in, including how to renovate. And so I think that our role is really important. Deloitte 2021 Trends in Marketing says, that people are looking for human connection, and people are concerned about climate and energy. National policies across the border are aligning. And so never before have we had such an incredible opportunity to be part of this sea change and to really instigate really good decision-making at a homeowner level as realtors.
Mm-hmm. It looks like it's sort of manifesting itself in policy changes on both sides of the border, with Biden and Trudeau in particular, sort of really pushing forward, putting their money where their mouth is, right, in terms of offering, all kinds of rebates and subsidies and sort of just funds to start to fuel some of these things that we all have been thinking about for a decade or so
long,
at least,
yeah.
longer. Yeah, it's great.
The Biden administration is making huge steps forward. It's being trapped in kind of an infrastructure bill, but as we think about the opportunities to invest in infrastructure across the United States, which is badly needed, and we know that by delaying those costs, by kicking down the road, they just get more and more intense. But it's probably smart that we did kick them down the road, because now there is a clear awareness, particularly with this administration, that a changing climate is going to impact how we invest in infrastructure improvements as well. We have to think forward. I had a chance, Max, to chair a presidential advisory group for NAR under Vince Malta's leadership last year to look at the impact of extreme weather events on the real estate industry, and it was eye-opening to everybody that participated in that presidential advisory group, and then the document that we passed on to our leadership team at NAR, very eye-opening. And one of the speakers that we had at the first meeting, this was in February in Chicago when we could still travel before we really knew COVID was going crazy last year, was BlackRock Investments. And BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world with over $8 trillion of assets. And their two sustainability managers were invited to speak, and they talked about the fact that, all of our investments now have to be looked at within this frame of a changing climate. And one of the things that really opened all of us as PAG members was, and we can't use historical data anymore. So we're looking at predictive analytics to look forward to analyze all of our investments as well. So, I think as real estate agents and, as the real estate industry, we kept our head in the sand for a little bit here, but there are market actors, big market actors, that are looking forward at this right now and analyzing what this means. I mean, I know Fannie and Freddie are looking at this stuff as well as GSEs.
Mhm.
Well, it's interesting, just to build on what you're saying. We're in a sales business, and to me, Zig Ziglar taught me when I was 20 or whatever and started selling, feature, function, benefit. This is the reality that we're in. But there's also another piece of that, and that's loss to be avoided. And so, as realtors, we are in a position to advise people on how to allocate their financial resources to create the maximum real estate benefit for themselves, and that means avoiding risk and seeking opportunity. And I think green is at the center of that.
Great. I guess we can go on to the next slide. No, that's fantastic insights.
So 68% of people want an environmentally friendly home. I know that, Craig, your marketplace in Massachusetts kind of matches what we have here in Toronto. Existing double brick buildings that weren't built for energy efficiency, but boy, are they pretty, and they have a lot of embodied energy, and they do a great job of delivering a value of use. And it is possible to retrofit them. That is to go either light or deep in terms of making them or more energy efficient, and to meet this emerging market. We also have a big infill market here, and that is an emerging opportunity. And we've got subdivision housing and greenfield development and brownfield infill, all of which have the opportunity to deliver value to this emerging demand marketplace. It's certainly we've moved away from a place where listing an energy efficient building and saying, oh, let's bake some cookies and make sure that the kitchen looks good is the only value proposition. I think that what this says is, hey, let's make sure we're doing a great job of energy staging when we're listing a property. And I know that you do an excellent job of that in Massachusetts. Craig, can you talk to that a bit?
Sure. Well, our marketplace, we're very lucky. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Lear Realty Partners, and I run a team called the Rethink 39 team. I'll talk about that in the next slide a little bit more. But we're lucky in Massachusetts. Max, when you were talking about kind of political will changing, that is definitely the case here in the Commonwealth. There's no question about it. In fact, Governor Baker, our really fantastic Republican governor, just signed a piece of legislation into law, because many of our communities here in the Commonwealth, we have 351 towns and cities in the state of Massachusetts, want a net zero energy stretch code. They want the ability to be able to, to have local rule to require new residential construction to be net zero energy homes that are producing as much energy as they're using on an annual basis. And in Massachusetts, for the most part, even though we're fairly high north, not as high as you guys are up in Canada, but we have over 100,000 homes now in the state with solar PV. And that was partly a driver because of the great legislation that was passed back in 2008 called Green Communities Act, to set up our net metering policy so darn well and to make it really viable for homeowners to be able to do that. So, I feel very lucky that I'm in a state where we're seeing this rapid move towards a clean energy economy. And the homes that are being built to these standards are definitely participating in that clean energy economy. And that means lots of good things. I mean, that's jobs, it's building jobs, it's great for realtors that specialize in this stuff because we really stand out in the crowd. We're just very lucky, I think. But with with the Biden administration, now actively involved in the federal space, I think this opportunity is not only going to be there in states like mine, where we've been a leader in some of this stuff, but we're seeing this emerge certainly throughout the Northeast and I think across America as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so 30. This is this is an interesting one. I think when we think about the energy and environmental emergency that we're dealing with, we tend to think about transportation. That the cars that we drive, the trucks driving around are the ones that are emitting all the greenhouse gases, and we have to move to EVs. There's an awareness of that. We get that. That's only 28% of US energy consumption that's attributed to the transportation sector. 39% of US energy consumption is attributed to the built environment. The homes that we live in and the offices that we work in, the places that we play at, that's 39% of US energy consumption. And most of that, believe it or not, of that 39%, 22% of that is the homes that we live in. Almost a quarter of US energy consumption is attributed to the homes that we live in. The other 17% goes to that commercial sector, right? So for realtors, there's just a massive opportunity to embrace this stuff right here, right now, and be part of a solution. We can work together here because, on top of this, we have the technology to do this today. We've seen this incredible emergence in the, it's called building science, right? That there are so many builders and developers out there that get how to do this responsibly, using heat pumps, using PV, using better insulated homes, tighter homes, better ventilation, energy recovery ventilation systems that can be incorporated. We know how to do this cost effectively today. And, we're seeing, as Chris pointed out earlier as well, the opportunity for existing homes, which is really the elephant in the room here, right? What we're, again, lucky in Massachusetts, we have something called the renewable portfolio standard. So all of our utilities are required to increase their renewable portfolio by 2% a year. I think that's going to go up to 4%. So the grid's getting greener. We can build to net zero energy standards now, residential and commercially, so that's a solution right there. And over this next decade, which we all know is critical right now, if we can increase the efficiency of existing homes by 30%, think about those three things working together, and I think we have a real solution to drop this number that's right here in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Go ahead, Chris. Yep.
One thing that when I attended my first NAR green designation training in Chicago, one of the things that came out of that conversation with colleagues from all over the continent was really that we don't need to be the experts about everything. We're really good at listing and selling houses. Great. We don't need to know everything there is to know, but we do need to know that there's value in things and that we need to go and find. So in this sense of the comfort about talking about sustainability, there is a knowledge gap currently, and that it makes an opportunity. The way I described it in the session at the Toronto Real Estate Board earlier is that we're in a Me Too value proposition business, right? I'm going to sell your house for more money in less time with less inconvenience to you. And everyone's value proposition is the same, and we might build value by doing it differently or based upon personal, professional experience. But this piece about representing a buyer and a seller in a sustainable home transaction is really a question of calling the right expert, because I don't need to know everything there is to know. I just need to know who to call when it's a piece of information I don't have myself. So, we know a lot about houses, but this gap can be filled with a roster of people to call. And that includes you and I think, Craig.
Yeah. The one question I have on this is the emergence of sustainability coming from the consumer, or is it coming from the realtors wanting to be informed? Is the consumer saying, do you know anything about sustainable home, or is the realtors being proactive in addressing these issues with a particular home, for example?
In my view, it's it's just like Craig Foley's TED Talk says. This is a market transformation opportunity. The ingredients are in the marketplace. So let's say a homeowner is choosing to put solar panels on the rooftop and hire a net zero energy builder, and the realtor is being asked for their advice. The opportunity is, and I think that some practitioners are saying, yeah, go as aggressively as you can on within your budget on building performance, because when I put the sign in the lawn and we go to sell that later, I'll be able to get you more money for that asset.
Right.
I think that's the key. And I don't think it's a universal thing, but I think all stars are aligning. In this week's federal budget in Canada, $4.4 billion has been allocated to a zero interest loan for home energy retrofit in Canada. That is a huge number and an incredible opportunity to build conversations with the housing marketplace, no matter where you're doing business in Canada.
Great.
And those, Max, the realtors that are willing to embrace this, that are, it takes some extra education. The platform that you guys have is fantastic. From the work that you guys are doing to educate realtors on building science through continuing education courses is exceptional. I think it's really well organized. But if realtors are willing to spend that little extra time and energy, either getting a designation or getting more continuing education classes so they can specialize in this part of the marketplace, they have such a huge opportunity in front of them, because there's an unmet need that's there. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's just a major competitive advantage in an environment where there's much more awareness to the benefits, right? So
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. And we can. I have a team called the Rethink 39 team that I lead in Massachusetts, and that team is focused on this topic exclusively. And we're proving in the marketplace that we can thrive as a team focused on this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean we don't sell crappy buildings as well. We're happy to do that, Max. We can put, if you excuse the expression, put lipstick on a pig as well as anybody can. You get in there and you paint and you stage, and you've got a home that doesn't have a great building envelope, that hasn't been sealed properly, that doesn't have better insulation. You're literally putting lipstick on a pig, and we're happy to do that, of course. But we can thrive in this environment as well. And it's just great to see how rapidly this market is emerging in the Commonwealth.
That's great.
Do we want to take on? So Meg, you had a question, and I'd love to know where you're asking from. But are we seeing home performance information showing up in listings in Canada? We certainly, in Toronto, in the GTHA, we have the ability to list a house that has detailed information around solar PV performance. We did have the feed-in tariff program with the Green Energy Act in Ontario. So that was where you were paid a premium to generate electricity using solar, in part justified against the peak demand against air conditioning. But also energy performance at a household level, we have an energy rating field in the Toronto MLS. It is way underutilized. And part of the contributor there is that we have had a persistently off the hook market. It is very difficult to be a buyer in this market. Consistently, we're getting 10 plus offers on almost every listing, regardless of how green it is. So that has been a challenge in terms of getting those home performance informations into the MLS. So there is a knowledge gap, just like Neil mentioned. That knowledge gap is an opportunity gap in my view. That is why we here on this call today, the people who participate with the RISE knowledge base and enrich themselves with the ability to differentiate their product value proposition, will also resonate with people who care, and more people care. So that just looks like good business to me.
No, absolutely. I mean, on this particular, on the next slide, actually, I think we covered some of it previously with, what the plans for both the US and Canada are to achieve, by 2030 net zero buildings. I guess both of you, can you elaborate? Do you know anything a little bit more on the actual steps?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just talk about again, I'll reiterate the next gen climate plan that Governor Baker just signed into law. 56 communities of our 351 signed a letter of support to that they'd like to look at the option of being able to require in their community a net zero energy building code. So that now is passed by law. It's going through a review process with our Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources. That's going to take about a year and a half to put together to really look at what that option is going to entail and how we're going to be able to do that. But you can see that, you know, in the state of Massachusetts, and we're seeing signs of this across the United States, that there is a political will to tackle this today. And Chris, you can kind of talk about this as well. But this decade is really critical. If we're going to meet the challenges that are in front of us, the science, the climate science is very, very clear that we have to act today. You know, we have to act. We should have acted yesterday and the day before yesterday, but we have to start acting today, and we have to tackle some of these things right now, which I think is part of why we're seeing a political will, both in the U.S. and Canada, across the world, that realize that we have to tackle this thing. And with our homes, I think it's tough, you know, because you know, it's not like our car. We might choose to buy an EV, the next car that we choose to purchase, but our homes are so personal, and we don't think that they can really change because they've been here forever, particularly in the Northeast, and you know, since 1600s. But they really can, and we have the science to be able to make changes even to the existing homes cost effectively at this point in the marketplace.
No, that's great. Thank you.
I agree. I want to just add to what Greg is saying. I was on a call around home energy rating and disclosure earlier this week, and it was a transatlantic, so it was a Canada and Europe conversation that I was participating in. And in Europe, they're talking. So they've got 36 regions where home energy rating disclosure is part of the transaction. In every transaction, it's a required piece of transaction in real estate. So that has created a energy literacy in that marketplace. So anybody who comes from that market into the North American market has a base literacy there. They're also talking about expanding that. So they want to see compliance across all buildings, including our existing housing stock, Craig, by 2050. So a mandatory compliance. Now, what that's going to look like and how they're going to achieve that, part of it is in deep energy retrofits. So we've got 30 years to get there, but I think you're absolutely right. Now's the time, and we have policy alignment across the border on this file.
No.
And if you know, the term that I use when I'm teaching, because it's fun, and if you'll excuse the expression to the connection to a famous book, there are 50 shades of green, right? I mean, you know, and the net zero energy LEED Platinum certified building is probably, you know, shade number 50, but we can go all the way back to the small little things that you can do, starting with getting an energy assessment on your home. Air sealing insulation work is practically free in the state because it's so incentivized, but even, you know, changing the incandescent light bulbs out to LEDs. There are so many shades of greening up your home that are so cost effective that it's crazy not to look at this stuff at this point, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, and the next side, it really looks at how, you know, what you're saying, how homes really impact the environment. Pretty incredible, the amount of these stats actually. It's kind of sobering, you know, in a weird way.
Yeah, and you know, my biggest fear, and you're alluding to it with that middle bar, is the Rethink 39 team maybe should start to be called the Rethink 40 team, you know, which is frightening to me. I'm hoping 10 years from now we can rename ourselves the Rethink 25 team, but we have been going backwards here in the United States over the last couple of years. There's no question about it.
So on the last one there, 51% household energy, is there differences between geographic locations in the north that would be different and versus the south? Would there be different changes in energy consumption based upon where you live?
Yeah, of course. And, you know, I mean, you know, and let's not forget about water consumption as well. If I teach the green designation in the Southwest, you know, it's not so much about dealing with the energy challenges out there, because energy is relatively cheap, but they're paying for water at a high cost. And, they're in drought restricted areas today that have been there for now moving on towards a decade. So water consumption and water efficiency are a big part of this pie as well, right? But obviously, if you're in the Southwest, if you're in Texas, if you're in the Southern California region, it's really AC that is the big challenge, right? And bumping up utility costs. Up here in the Northeast, it's heating costs, obviously, they're a big driver. But we're seeing more wet, more humid summers as well. And builders can't build even here in the Northeast, which has always been a relatively mellow climate, without AC at this point, because we know it's getting hotter and wetter.
Yeah. One of the things that I come to in this context is that there's definitely a priority to fuel switching away from things that, let's say, like combustion-based heating toward electrification. And the good news on air conditioning is it's already electric, so it has the capacity to be relatively decarbonized. But building envelope performance in Austin, Texas, where it's a cooling climate, so more insulation in the walls and a better building envelope, are equally relevant to a to a heating climate in the Northeast or in Canada. The envelope improvements, a better building envelope, will deliver value no matter what's happening outside relative to energy performance. In Canada, I think that one of the things that's going to happen is it's not only energy consumption in terms of gigajoules or whatever you want to measure by, but it's also energy source. And so in Canada, I think we want to be moving away from carbon-based, so home heating that's related to combustion, toward healthier and carbon reduced alternatives like heat pumps.
Got it. So we did get a question from Taylor. Taylor, we'll get to your question after the presentation is over, and we'll definitely address your inquiry.
I'm going to toss in one other thing to Chris said, Austin, Texas. Let's not forget, in Texas, what was it, a month ago, 2 months ago, there was a 10-day blackout because of extreme cold conditions. And, I know that there's an analysis going on right now that better building envelopes in Austin, Texas could have made a huge difference in terms of getting the grid back up more quickly.
So in terms of what we're looking at in a typical home, there's 5 really pillars toward a sustainable home. Energy and water efficiency. So Craig, you just said, water is energy, kind of. And in Toronto, the city of Toronto spends more money on water management than it does running the Toronto Transit Commission. So all of our subways and buses and street level streetcars. Water is energy, and also water is flood and combined heat sewer infrastructure failure based risk reduction as well. So that's an important cornerstone. Indoor air quality is one of the key benefits to sustainable housing, and it is central to all of the different forms of better buildings, whether it's passive house or net zero. Indoor air quality and whole house system for delivering comfort is very important. To that point, what kind of heating, what kind of cooling, how efficient, it's going to be related to the building envelope, but making that as clean and green as possible is very important. Responsible material use. So let me talk about that for a minute. One of the things that I think we're going to see, Craig, and I'd be interested in your perspective on this, but is as carbon pricing gets integrated, not only in the cost of transportation, but in an actual bona fide premium paid for carbon intensity, it looks to me like a relocalization of material sourcing is going to happen, as well as an increased delta between materials that are, let's say, carbon sequestering, like wood, where the carbon that was captured by the tree from the atmosphere is then stored inside the walls of the building, as opposed to carbon intense materials like steel or concrete may have an increased premium for use. So responsible material use, And that also carries over to indoor air quality. There's a link there. So low formaldehyde, low off-gassing materials
Mhm.
that contribute to healthy indoor air quality. And then land stewardship. There's this bizarre trend in Toronto and some modern builds to put astroturf down in the backyard instead of grass, I guess because of some low maintenance thing. But I think that that's going to change very quickly because people are demanding a better biophilic, that is a love of nature connection, and that is manifest in green roofs, as a view shed for a condo, as growing living infrastructure that's on my balcony, or a more growing living backyard private terra firma or public space. The idea of integrating native species and landscaping as part of what we think of as the house, a house, with a mature tree to the south in Toronto will have a significantly lower cooling load in the summer than one without a tree. And the same goes for northwesterly evergreen windbreaks. And so, the idea that land is part of housing is these 5 pillars are thoroughly investigated within the RISE curriculum, and it's a good reason to do the course.
Let's not forget about the importance of stormwater management, as a larger issue. Up here in the Northeast, we're not necessarily seeing larger amounts of rain annually, but we're seeing the rainstorms that we get be more intense, so that we're regularly getting 2-inch rainfall events, and higher at this point. And that produces stress on our water infrastructure here in the Northeast, right? So you mentioned green roofs. One of the great things about commercial green roofs is they capture that intense rainfall. That's a requirement for LEED certified buildings, that an 80-year rainfall event, all of the water needs to be retained on site for 24 hours. So, we're seeing, even in the town that I live in Melrose, Massachusetts, we're seeing a breakdown of the drainage infrastructure right now. It's 100 years old. In Andover, Massachusetts, in 2018, in September 2018, in Lawrence, there was a big natural gas explosion that took 1,000 families out of their home for that whole heating season, because the natural gas infrastructure is getting older as well. So the infrastructure challenges here are huge, and green homes, sustainable homes, are already factoring this in. We're already thinking forward with this stuff. And I will also reiterate what Chris said. The RISE platform is excellent in terms of how it organizes all of the materials that we need to know as realtors on this topic.
So I have one question on the, in a normal market where you're not getting, 1,000 offers for each home, how important is air quality? Is that a talking point given COVID? Is it something that you should broach with a potential client, saying that, this house with X is going to provide you, much more fresh air compared to house B? Is that a talking point?
Yeah, so it has been a talking point, and we just published today. So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Lear Realty Partners, and we just published our annual Lear Sustainability Report. I put it in the chat earlier. I don't know if it's still up there, but you can go to that, download it, grab it, and use it, rip it off. As far as I'm concerned, it would be great for other real estate companies throughout the United States and Canada to really take a look at this as a whole brokerage approach to how we deal with sustainability. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. But in that document, one of the things that I found as I was researching this last year was an increased awareness because of COVID to the impact that we have on the environment. We've seen those numbers grow up with COVID. We assume that there's some kind of correlation there, but there's no question that, at least here in the US, a big part of the focus, and this is part of the Biden administration's focus with the infrastructure package as well, is how do we get commercial buildings and schools back up so that they're healthy to be in. And a critical part of that is proper ventilation. We're hearing all about proper ventilation all over the place right now. And, we've got IAQ, the indoor air quality button here. That's really critical. I want to say this too. For many realtors, when I teach the green destination, we talk about a tight building. And inevitably, I start to see the hairs on the back of the neck start to rise, because we've all somehow learned in the real estate business that a building can be too tight. There is no such thing as a too tight building. There is such a thing as a too tight building without proper ventilation, but we have the ability with things like energy recovery ventilation systems that deliver superior indoor air quality, much, much better indoor air quality. EPA says that the average home is 10 to 20 times more polluted than the outdoor air is. So we have the ability to tackle this stuff, and it has definitely been a driver in the conversation, Max, in the homes that we've sold over the course of this last year. I mean, it's easy to reference a home with an ERV when you're wearing masks and showing the home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess makes total sense. I guess we running a little bit short on time, so I guess we should probably look at the. No, that's great. Thanks, Craig.
So this is really, I mean, the value proposition for real estate is to have a knowledge pool. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be something in the right direction. The way I've always taught this, Craig, and you maybe do the same, is, you don't have to be an expert at everything, but if you love solar, and then use that as the wedge, and then find others who can help you with things like green infrastructure or permeability. If you love building science, then be the expert at that. Use your passion wedge to drive it, and know as much as you can, but don't be apprehensive about not knowing everything, because there's a lot to know.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, Chris. But, one of the things, the know the science, sell the benefits is a really great one. The benefits, I think we're all, we can put two and two together pretty quickly. Lower operating costs. I mean, I'm selling homes that have zero for operating costs.
Wow.
Ask a buyer what they use to heat their home, the home that they're living in right now for the last year, what their utility bills cost for the entire year. They add those numbers together, and all of a sudden it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, and we're selling a home that offers zero. In fact, you're getting paid by the utility company in Massachusetts to live in these homes, right? That value proposition is huge. Healthier homes, better indoor air quality. If I'm selling a LEED certified home, I can guarantee you that 10% of the buyers that come through are going to be people, usually with kids, or maybe the adults have an asthma issue. They know
Right.
more about,
Right.
because they've Googled healthy homes, right?
Yeah,
and
indeed.
LEED pops up. They know more about LEED certified homes than their buyer's agent does typically, right? So these are real clear benefits. The comfort in a home. I mean, when I work with a new buyer, we ask all the normal things that we need to be asking. What communities are you looking at? Number of bedrooms, school system, number of, size of the driveway, garage, what, blah, 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 all the normal things. But I always try to end with, in the last homes that you lived in or you grew up in, what were some of the things that you really hated about some of the homes that you lived in? That can give me a lot of information, right? And inevitably, the buyers will talk about, oh my God, there was always one room that was way too cold in the winter and way too hot in the summer, or I hate oil heat. I mean, those kinds of conversations come up. So without hitting them over the head with green, 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 you reference the things that they really had difficulties with in their past homes, and it really opens up the conversation for the value of high performance homes.
Oh, great idea. Absolutely amazing.
So-
So go ahead, Chris.
Well, I just noticed Cheryl Evans has a question about climate resilience, and so do we want to take that on, or do we have other questions that have come in?
Yeah, well, we've got a question from Taylor. Basically, the question is, as a real estate broker, what are some ways I can advocate for greening my MLS as well as my local association? So I'm assuming sort of proactive things that someone can do to sort of inject a bit of green into your local area?
I can tell you a little bit about my personal experience. So I was invited by the Toronto Real Estate Board in 2007 to be part of a green committee at the board, and then in 2019 I was invited back to talk about climate and flood risk in Toronto, and so. In that meeting, I suggested that we make a climate risk subcommittee to deal with issues like flooding and disclosure. And so getting involved in a voluntary perspective is one way. And that's within the bureaucratic structure of your local board, which takes time and patience. And that's been my experience anyways. But big dents can be made in the universe by that path. They just take a while. The other way is to use your own brand and your own brokerage and your own team to follow the lead that Craig is a trailblazer on, making your team the standout expert on this file in your marketplace, and then get the word out by PR and self promotion, so that your marketplace comes to you when they care about these things, or when they have a product that represents these characteristics.
Yeah, and Chris Tengerin just put in the toolkits for greening the MLS that NAR produced. Hopefully, Chris, if you can find that link and add it for Taylor, that would be great. But I'll give you, so there is a resource for that, Taylor. And I'll pass along kind of, my work that I did with our MLS PIN in Massachusetts, which is the predominant MLS in Massachusetts. This may be something everybody wants to get involved with, certainly. I was working with our local chapter, our Massachusetts chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council back in 2012, 2013. Great way to network, by the way. If you're a realtor, get involved with your local building communities like USGBC or Passive House. You might have a Massachusetts Passive House chapter, for instance. Get involved in those. They love realtors that get it, and what a great source of leads and referrals for your business as well. So we were working on the residential green building committee for the Massachusetts chapter USGBC, and we were talking about the MLS, and MLS PIN had a pretty good set of green data fields, but we looked at those green data fields. So I took everybody through that. We had architects and builders and energy modelers and HERS raters that were involved in this committee. And we realized that there was a huge opportunity. So we submitted 20 recommendations that had multiple fields in each of the 20 recommendations to MLS PIN, to the CEO. And they were so thankful for the work that had been done by these experts. And they implemented them. It takes it was a 2-year process to implement these kinds of changes in the MLS, but they implemented 16 of the 20 2 years later, and now 18 of the 20 have been implemented in 2021 right now. So this stuff can happen, Taylor, from the ground up, absolutely, and it's a great process to get involved with.
No, that's fantastic.
One of the things, dovetailing to that is that it is going to be important for the realtor brand in Canada and the US. So the Canadian Real Estate Association and NAR to meet consumer demand at the point of MLS entry. That is, when somebody's looking for a property, we need to be able to show them that there's property that they want to find. So if they're looking for a neighborhood and then they're looking for a field like 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and solar panels on the rooftop, we need to be able to find a way to get there, because otherwise somebody else is going to eat our lunch. So, as it relates to getting on board on this, I think there is a loss to be avoided from those disruptive third parties who are, trying to get to the consumer faster than we can.
Right. Awesome. So I guess the next question is from Cheryl. Her question was, how does climate resilience fit into the discussion? The ability for a home to resist damage due to wildfires, floods, hail, hurricanes, etc., and to recover as quickly as possible. This is critical to protecting realty value and continuity of use. Really great question, Cheryl. Thank you. Gentlemen?
Thanks, Cheryl. Greg, you okay if I take this one?
Yes, you go right ahead, Chris. Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so yeah, the real estate, we have an important role to play, and disclosure is part of that. And because, like Craig said earlier, we're looking at forecasting models instead of historic data as evidence of what's going to happen, not what did happen, in order to anticipate risk. Not everybody in marketplaces are aware of these trends. So the real estate industry has an important liability to avoid and an important marketplace to meet. I'm in the finishing stages of a book. It's called The Investor's Guide to Real Estate in an Era of Climate Change, and it's built upon my research. Essentially, some places, some jurisdictions will become climate havens. They may become climate havens because they're going to be more comfortable, less hot, or more have less dry, or in an ocean perspective, we share coastlines all the way around the continent, and in our marketplaces. But when the sea level rises in Halifax, just like it does in Boston, and that does impact coastal property. So there is definitely something to be done. In the U.S., there is a terrific resource called floodfinder.com. And you can go in there and you can plug in your address and find out your postal area's relative risk for flooding, which is really cool. Love to see that in Canada. And the federal government in Canada just announced, I think, $68 million to flood map release and availability to the public within this budget. So hopefully that means that we have a flood finder type solution in our marketplace so that we can help our clients avoid buying flood risk property, or to at least find places and ways to mitigate existing risk. In the context of wildfire, which is present as much in Montana and Colorado as it is in British Columbia, in Canada, and that is so Fire Smart in Canada, Fire Wise in the U.S. These are approaches to creating site level and community level resilience to wildfire risk, and practitioners in those markets are wise to include Fire Wise in their client communications in those markets.
And Chris, you've done some pretty intense study on the dollar value impact of resiliency measures. Can you just talk about some of the research that you've done, some of the work you've done in that space as well?
Sure. So I looked at historical climate impacts from multiple categories of risk. And the categories of risk I examined were wildfire, sea level rise, flood from both river rise and overland, and sewer backup, and wind and drought. And really what I was trying to figure out was, and this was an intensive and extensive study that was part of a master's program that I did in strategic foresight and innovation. Here's what I discovered, Craig. First, the impact of a catastrophic event. So Katrina is an example of a catastrophic event, and there's lots of other examples, but that's just a really prescient one. So the property value before Katrina and the property value after Katrina shows a delta. So the delta on average across risk categories that I found was approximately 30%. And that so that was a 30% reduction in property value. The tough part is this, that the land improvements, let's say the house, is insured to be replaced, but there may be a stigma that goes with the land. So if the land value before the event was 700,000, you lose 30% of that, then yeah, you get your house back on that same piece of land, but there's a possibility that the value of the asset goes below the value of the loan. And that's where our marketplace has the capacity to get in trouble, or complete communities have the capacity to get, underwater, literally, with toxic mortgages. So these are early signs. I mean, I was looking at data that has been collected over a decade and a half. And certainly, like you said before, tomorrow is not reflected by yesterday. So yesterday is just a clue to what we might expect next time.
Wow.
Man, I love it when you talk sexy like that, Chris. I think I just had a hot flash. That was so good.
All right. Well, you're just a short flight away. Come on for a visit.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Listen, I think we're pretty much at the end of our 1 hour, which was, I think, supposed to be half an hour, 45 minutes. And I'm sure we could probably talk on this for days. First of all, I want to thank you both. For me, I've learned a ton. You guys are fantastic. Really appreciate your expertise. For those in the audience whose questions we didn't get to, you can shoot me an email at maxwell@buildwithrise.com. And Ashley and I will do our best to get those questions answered. So again, want to thank you again for joining. It's been a great 1 hour. Again, guys, I really appreciate it. And for the rest of you, have a great week. And of course, everyone says it all the time, but stay safe. And this, hopefully the lights will go back on in the world relatively soon, and we can do these things in person. So want to
Thanks to you and Rise for putting this together. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate your input, guys. You're fantastic as always.
Great to see you, Craig. Thanks,
Nice to see
Maxwell.
you too, Chris. Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.
Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. For more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the button below, and also check out buildwithrise.com, the only place to turn any home improvement project into a sustainable one.